Sam Bankman-Fried wasn't just a bad guy. He was also a patsy, and he was a patsy of the kind that the system needs right now. The system that we have is fraudulent, the financial system, and where it's at now, it requires an occasional patsy like Sam Bankman-Fried. That way, it can, for a little bit longer, conceal that it's all built on fraud. It's a rogue actor did this, and that way they can hide how over-leveraged the whole system is. Now, Sam Bankman-Fried said famously or infamously, if one mouths the right syllabus, one can do whatever one wants. And for a while, he was right. And it shows you what I've said in other videos about why are people saying all these crazy things, endorsing all these crazy ideas, because the people with the money want them to, and the people have a magic money machine with a fiat currency. They know I better please those guys even more than I please my customers, because they have more money than my customers. They have a possibly infinite amount of money they can just crank out. The value of that money will be stolen from the money that my customers have. I better please these guys even more than my customers. And Sam Bankman-Fried was not that bright. He didn't get where he was when he was on top by merit. He got there by mouthing the right empty syllabus. And that's what a lot of these people that are writing pretty high right now are doing. They're not there by merit. They're not there because they provide value to others. They're on top because they play the game. They will say anything is true, even if it's nonsense. Because we have a fraudulent financial system, and frauds don't like honest people. They like people that will tell them the lies they want to hear and go along with the game. And so that's who gets rewarded in a system where money can be produced in mass at no cost to the producers, which is a relatively small group of people. So it's built on money with no intrinsic value and leverage. Guess who prospers in such a system? Those that have access to cheap credit. They can go buy up all the real assets of the world on leverage. Success isn't won by merit. It's won by playing the game, knowing how to play the game, and being so bankrupt in character that you're willing to play the game. And if you're supposed to say today that up is down and right is wrong, you're willing to say it, you're in the club. You've shown you can be trusted to not call out the fraudsters because you've expressed that morally you are a fraud. And that underlies a lot of this. Then they use that credit, that access to cheap credit, to buy up the real assets of the world on leverage. Do you work hard providing goods and services to others, but question the narratives that the ruling class wants you to parrot? Okay, well, no easy money for you then. You have to earn your dollars. They get their dollars without earning them. Who's going to win in this system? The first step after you say all the right things and getting access to large amounts of easy credit is you use it to create an asset. Now, you could work hard and provide real useful products and services to others and create an asset that has actual value, but that's hard and that's completely unnecessary to get rich in today's fraudulent economy. That's because the perceived value of the asset means more than the actual asset and the actual value. Because you can entice people to buy a piece of what you're selling if the value is perceived as high. So getting the mainstream media to talk about your product or your reputation in a favorable manner is worth more than being good to your customers. That's where we are. You can then use that perceived increase in value to obtain more credit and buy and create another asset whose value you also have every reason to inflate. And at each step, You use the perceived increase in value to obtain another asset, which you use to make your portfolio worth even more, and it goes on ad nauseum. It isn't even about making a real working, profitable business. If you can sell the possibility of future profits, and of course the establishment media can make you or break you on this, so repeat all the things they tell you to believe. You can borrow more money and you can buy even more stuff. And the trouble with this is, at some point, they can't change reality. They can only suppress it for a time. At some point, the real value of these assets is exposed. Maybe a shell game is exposed. Maybe there's a general malaise in the sector and the asset in it, and it becomes known that the true value of the asset is not as great as the debt and the money that was used to gather up, whether it's stock price, corporate debt, or both. If I can convince someone to loan me $10 billion at 2% interest, then I only need the assets I require with that money to increase in perceived value at the rate of 4% to be worth $200 million. You get it? They loan me $10 billion at 2%. I've got to pay $200 million in interest, but if I convince people and buy assets that are going up at 4%, I've made $200 million. Okay? The key was getting $10 billion cheap. I can buy stuff with it that gets me enough money to cover that cheap interest and a little more. And I'm worth $200 million. Man, how did you get so rich? How did you earn all that money? Didn't earn it. I got access to $10 billion of cheap credit, and I bought up a bunch of stuff that makes a little bit over the interest rate. And you don't have to make much over the interest rate when you've got $10 billion working for you to make a lot of money and to be, quote, worth a lot of money. Well, what if they lose value? Then I'm not rich anymore. Then I don't have $200 million. I owe a bunch of money. I borrowed $10 billion and my assets are only worth $9.5 billion. I'm in the hole $500 million. And this is going on all over the economy, and so many people who got to the top this way have to keep the plate spinning or the whole thing crashes. This is Sam Bankman-Fried. He's not the only guy who's done this. He is the bag holder. He is the patsy. And I'm going to explain that. You know, we had the 2008 bank bailouts. The taxpayer was the patsy. The system literally created all the currency out of thin air they needed to keep the plate spinning. If favored players had assets that were underwater, the Fed discount window either bought them at above market prices or loaned money with them as the collateral at better than market terms. And we were the patsy. We were the bag holders. But they got themselves in a trap with this. It saved the system. It preserved and kept the fraud from being exposed a little longer. But the debt created to back this currency has to be paid for by sacrificing future consumption. But when you've got a system built on this leverage, there's no point at which you can say, okay, we're going to tighten our belts now. It crashes the entire system. So, and the sheer amount of debt needed to sustain it is going to raise red flags, which it already has. Foreigners are like, maybe we should quit relying on their currency so much. The world is going to figure out that all this genius financial investing is just the result of a government worth trillions writing hot checks. Writing hot checks to sustain the illusion of solvency a little bit longer. So, as a way to put this off, the system needs fall guys. That is, it has to find a way to allow some of the underwater assets to get liquidated at a loss. They can't keep all the plates spinning at once. So they're trying to blame the individual plates that fall instead of the entire system. You see where I'm getting at that? They've got all these plates spinning, and some of the assets need to get liquidated, but they want to contain that so that people won't say, wow, this whole system is fraudulent. They need to say, you know what, that was a lone gunman. That was a bad actor. Bear Stearns was a bad actor. MF Global was a bad actor. And yet John Corzine never went to jail. Most of the big banks were caught being bad actors in the sense that they had recklessly over-leveraged back in 2008. Like I said, the government kept the plate spinning by moving the bad bets to the taxpayers' books. We wound up with the bad so-called assets. But that outlet has kind of exhausted itself, hasn't it? They've stolen all they can steal that way without collapsing the economy. So they need to wait till the economy recovers from their past skimming before they skim again at that magnitude. Otherwise, the parasites kill the host, and we're getting close now. Enter FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, the bad actor. He was playing the game with these connected people, selling paper assets to one another at more and more hyped up prices. But he got took. Instead of dumping their bad assets on the government's books, they played him for a chump and got him to take it. That wasn't all that happened, of course. I mean, he got desperate at the end when he saw the true value of the stuff asserting itself, and he used money he wasn't supposed to use to try to keep his own plate spinning. But ultimately, he leveraged to the moon on hyped up assets just like the rest of them. His assets were just a little worse, and he was just a little less connected. So you can look for there to be more such cases in the future, not fewer. There's going to be more cases of bad actors. Oh, we didn't realize their assets were so worthless and over-leveraged. The system isn't going to correct this because it can't. It has to have some way to bleed off some of those toxic assets without taking down the whole system. If they can't have no damage because the 2008 style bailouts are off the table for a while, then they'll try to find some patsy to take the fall. They'll find some guy who really isn't that bright, and they'll start building him up. Then they'll sell their trash to him on borrowed money. And when it goes bad, he's exposed as a fraud, and the system goes on not exposed as a fraud. End fiat currency and limit leverage. There is no way to save this system anyway. And even if there was, it doesn't deserve saving. Thank you for listening.